Welcome everybody to today's video. I thought I would go live, but I do have a topic to discuss. So whether or not anybody shows up to ask any questions, it'll be good, but if not, that's okay because I do plan on kind of talking with you guys about a specific topic. And that topic that I wanted to discuss today is about sleepy babies. A lot of times if you have a baby that is extremely sleepy, and this can make it difficult to breastfeed. Maybe your baby, it's hard to get them to even breastfeed, or if they're already breastfeeding, to continue breastfeeding. So I thought that I would go ahead and put out a video today discussing that subject, just some tips on what you can do to help your baby to wake up more to breastfeed, or to keep your baby actively breastfeeding while they're already on the breast. So we'll get started with just some strategies, and I am again referring to some information that I have from one of my books. So although I will be referring to this, and I may be looking down, I will put in some links for you to look at for further information. So the first thing that it talks about is making sure that you're breastfeeding on cue. So you want to be aware of your baby's feeding cues, and you want to be looking for those feeding cues and the signs of those when your baby's hungry. And this can help a little bit. So if your baby isn't hungry, how do I want to put this? Sometimes we're set on having our baby on a schedule, and we're like, okay, well, we have to feed every 2 hours because we're going based on what maybe we've been told, what somebody has said, not based on our baby and their specific feeding cues and their feeding needs. So every baby is different. You just want to follow the rule of thumb where your baby is feeding at least 8 times in a 24-hour day. So you want to look at your day in 24 hours. You want to count that whole entire 24-hour day, not just like from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, but in reality, the entire 24-hour period. And you want to count how many times your baby feeds in that 24 hours. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're feeding on cue. When you're feeding on cue, you may find that you're getting that 8 feeds or more in a day, and your baby's feeding fine. But if you're noticing that you're still struggling, even trying to feed your baby on cue, maybe they're not showing cues, maybe they are truly very sleepy and very tired. So here are some things that we can do to just kind of help. Number one, you want to do anything that you can to try to arouse them in their light sleep cycle. So that's going to be hard to determine, especially if you're a new mom, but these are the things you would be looking for. You'd be looking for rapid eye movement under the eyelids. You would be looking for arm or leg movements. Now, these things would be happening despite the fact that their eyes are closed. So it may appear like they're sleeping, but you're going to notice eye movement while their eyes are closed. You're going to notice arm or leg movements. You may notice some sucking or lip movement, so they're moving their lips or sucking their lips. And you may even notice changes in facial expression. These are signs of that light sleep cycle. When they're in a very deep sleep, a lot of times you won't notice any of those things, none of those facial movements or arm and leg movements. They'll be completely out. But a light sleep, you will notice those things. So those are the 4 things that you would want to look for that light sleep cycle, and you would want to attempt to arouse them or wake them up during that sleep cycle, or what appears to be sleeping. So some of the things that you can do to wake them up is to cool your baby down. I thought it was interesting that it said that sucking activity decreases in temperatures above 80 degrees. So if your baby is very warm, this is going to induce sleep. It is not going to induce feeding. So you want to cool your baby down. You might remove blankets, you might unwrap them, you may undress them, whatever you can to cool them down, because we want to not induce sleep, but rather induce sucking. We want them to feed. So cooling them down is important. Sometimes we think so much about keeping them warm, and this is good, but when it's time to feed, what's most important is that they're feeding. So just kind of knowing that, keeping them cool will keep them awake. And I just thought it was interesting. I never really knew that high temperatures above 80 induce, they decrease the sucking activity. So that's very interesting. Another thing that you'd want to do is talk to your baby, try to make eye contact with your baby, hold your baby in an upright or standing position. This can help. Dimming the lights sometimes can really help. I used to do this a lot when I would see moms that would come in and the baby was really sleepy. We would dim the lights because sometimes bright lights or loud noises cause a baby to close their eyes. It's either too bright or too loud or whatever. So sometimes dimming the lights, you'll notice the baby will open their eyes. So that is a number one thing that I've seen work many, many times, is just dimming the lights, because the bright lights can be very sensitive to babies, or babies can be very sensitive to the bright light. Another thing that you can do is bend the baby into gentle sit-ups. So you kind of just sitting them up back and forth like so. This kind of just induces them to wake up. And then you can lay the baby on their back on a firm surface, not a bed, because that would, of course, make it too comfortable. So you want to make them a little bit uncomfortable so that they're awake. You want to rub your baby's back. So you could use your fingers and just kind of like tap them, or kind of like crawling sensation up their back, or just patting their back can help, rubbing it. Changing their diaper, that's a really big thing. Again, that will make them feel cooler. That's going to wake them up. They don't like that cold feeling. And then sometimes you can rub their hands and their feet gently. This can kind of help wake them up. And increasing your skin to skin. So, bringing them onto you and holding them skin to skin can help. And then moving the baby's arms and legs, kind of like in a patty cake type of movement. You could be doing that. Sometimes and I would suggest, we used to call it wipey torture when my kids were little, where we would take a wipey and we put it on their feet or on their back. Now, I don't suggest that unless the baby is really not doing well at staying awake and you're trying everything you can. That might be like the last thing that I would try, and I don't think I would use a wipey. I think that I would take a warm washcloth that is wet and put it on their forehead, on their feet, on their hands, on their cheeks, just something cool, not hot, and not too warm, but kind of a cool, kind of lukewarm type of thing, where you want to wake them up but not startle them necessarily. And again, it's hard, that one some people might think is kind of mean, but this is a case where it's more important to wake that baby up to feed than to be thinking about, you don't want to, and this would be, to me, something that you would try when nothing else is working. So that is something to think about. And then the next 6 things I'm going to mention are to help keep the baby on the breast, feeding actively longer. So maybe they're getting on the breast, but then they're falling asleep at the breast. So this would be something that you would be using, things that you could try to keep them, on the breast longer. Number 1, you would want to improve their latch. Make sure that they're latched correctly. Sometimes when they're sleeping, they tend to, they're sleepy, they tend to kind of like start latched well, but then they slowly slide off. So make sure that they're latched well. Sometimes when your breasts are really full, that can make it hard for them to latch correctly. And then if they're not getting milk then they're just sucking, which is basically just putting them to sleep. So latching is really important, making sure that they're latched correctly. Using breast compression to increase milk flow. So sometimes when you notice the baby is falling asleep, you can press the breast. So you're kind of like pressing down on the breast, and this can kind of help help the milk move a little bit faster, eject a little faster, and this can kind of wake them up. Switching the breasts as soon as the baby begins to lose interest in sucking. So if you have them on one breast and they've been on there for a while and now they're just not interested in sucking anymore, you can move to the other breast. This could help. Burping the baby or changing their diaper. So say they're feeding, they fall asleep, you take them off, change their diaper. You can burp them, and sometimes this will help wake them up and feed longer. Also trying different breastfeeding positions. This would be good because sometimes one position could be more apt to be, it's more comfortable and it makes them sleep easier. So maybe moving to a different position that kind of induces them to be more awake. Massaging the baby's crown in a circular motion while breastfeeding. I would say too, like just playing with their feet, rubbing and massaging their feet and their hands, rubbing their back, patting their back, all of these things you can be doing to help baby while they're breastfeeding. But then again, you also don't want to do it while they're feeding. You would want to do it when they stop so that you're kind of like waking them up. You don't want to disturb them while they're actually actively feeding, but when they stop, then you could do these things to get them to wake up and begin feeding again. So those are just some tips and some strategies on helping a baby that is sleepy and not feeding very well. I hope that it helps any of you out there that might be struggling with a sleepy baby. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if this video helped you. And the notification bell next to the subscribe button is there for you to click if you would like to be notified when I put out videos. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.